all those wings will take you up so high. So bid the forest for goodbye as you race the wind and take to the sky.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back with the first video in my new house, home, room. I finished moving, it's nearly done, like I'm still waiting for a desk and like some small stuff, but in general it's done. And I'm practically living in my closet now, which was something I always dreamed of but never had the capacity to do it. So far it's been really good, like the people I'm living with, the house is awesome. The city is great, it's a really small city but with a big university, so there are many young people. It's the second oldest university of Germany, I think. And yeah, so far it's better than I expected. Actually, I was a little bit scared since everything here is so small and to go from Seoul to a city like that. But so far it turned out really good. I even found an Asia store that sells Korean ramen for like $2 a pack. Today's video is inspired by a little discussion that's going on at one of my videos at the moment. And that was about someone who went to Europe and who made some bad experience. The end of all that was that he said how European people tend to be more impolite than Asians. Now the question is that true? No. At least you can say it like that. Our cultures are just so different. Of course, we also have a different way of dealing with politeness. And what we may assume as normal is impolite for you. Politeness is always based on rules. And you can just say that your rules are much stricter than ours. And maybe so is your culture in some ways. One thing that person interpreted as impolite and also racist was the fact that wherever he went, people stared at him. At least that's what he said. How do you think I felt when I was in Korea? People were partway staring at me like a zoo animal. Of course, in Europe we are more used to the view of foreigners. But anyways, you're someone from a very different culture with a very different face. And you are moving in our used environment. But why do you have to interpret this as racism? Why don't you interpret it as curiosity? Maybe it's not the politest thing in the world to stare at someone who looks like different at you, but I think you take this a little bit too serious. This is just the normal aspect of a foreigner. When you want to dive in another culture, you just have to expect things like this. And I would never deny that there are idiots everywhere. I mean, of course, there are everywhere people who don't like foreigners or who have prejudice, but in Korea that happens as well. When I was there, I also experienced racism, but I would never blame the whole country for it. And especially not the whole continent. A very good example for how these things can be misunderstood is one thing he named. He was standing in line and a woman cut in front of him, and he also interpreted this as racism since he was the only non-white person in the lineup and because maybe the woman looked at him in a bad way. That happens all the time. Of course, this is nothing anyone would say here is polite, but people just sometimes do it. We know what politeness is, just there are people who don't follow it exactly as they maybe should. I'm German, I'm in Germany, and I meet people on the street I never met before. I don't know your name, I don't know who you are, and you're looking at me like this. This just happens. We Germans, of course, are really sensitive to this topic because we are aware of our past and we take it very serious. And of course, we are offended when people are coming along interpreting little things as racism. Maybe you should reflect your opinion and think about it if you're not maybe a little biased because of our past. Like that you interpret things as racism that are maybe just cultural difference. So take care, try to be a little more sensitive because when I went to Korea, I had to do compromises in my education, my view of things. I had to get used to other opinions, different behavior. This is just part of going abroad. I don't want to offend you, but why do you go abroad expecting people to be like in your country? When you do that, you're missing out on experience. And maybe there was this woman who didn't treat you right, maybe there was this person who didn't let you sit on that chair, but weren't there many others who treated you well? Asian politeness you really carry in front of you. There are so many little gestures that are signs of politeness that our culture simply doesn't have. But you are educated in this. Like, there are people who follow this anyways. Does this mean that this is someone who has a greater character than someone who just lives in another culture and didn't have the chance to learn that? I don't think so. Also, the mentalities are so different. For example, the person who writes that they go into France and the people were like snappy at them without any reason. They're doing this to Germans too. This is just the way of their mentality. Italian people, they are often like, they have this temper, you know? And maybe when you come from Asia and you're used to this tenderness, you might misunderstand it. In Korean culture, you have this huge system of rules, but that doesn't mean that you don't have impoliteness. Something that nearly all Koreans tend to do is sitting right next to you, assuming you're not understanding what they're saying and talking about you. And that doesn't even have to be something negative, but this is, in my opinion, something extremely impolite. Maybe you don't see it like this because you don't know the perspective of a foreigner, but sometimes this really hurts your feeling because you feel like so pushed out. In Korea, it happened to me before that I was snapping at some random people at the subway who were saying some really mean things about me. And you can just make them shut up with something like, 죄송해요, 난 한국말 잘해요. I mean, what the heck? Please tell me this is not impolite. This impoliteness is maybe much more subtle often, like there are this little things. In general, I can say that I think my culture doesn't want to offend or to treat foreign people or guests in our country bad. I think this is a misunderstanding. I just felt that I have to say something about that. I don't know why. Maybe, yeah, because I'm a little bit sensitive. Like, I think something like racism is something really, really bad. And in this case, I really have to take my culture aside because I think you were a little bit too hard on it. Maybe you think over your opinion once more, and maybe with what I said here, it's easier for you next time to come to Europe to enjoy your time here, and I hope you do that because we have a great culture too. And we are different, but that doesn't mean that we can come together at one point. And when it happened to you here that someone really treated you bad and didn't give a good impression of our culture, then I'm really sorry for that, but I think most others would be too.